Okay, so what we're gonna do, I am gonna use the painted paper that I just did with you guys for my sky. It is still a little bit wet, but that's okay. When it goes on, it's gonna go on like this. And then you can see I'm probably gonna have a lot of paper left over down at the bottom. This is my water paper from the first time that I did this project. And it is not, even if I put it, well, I could put it all the way down here, but then I would have this big weird white band through the middle, and I want to make sure that it overlaps with my sky. So I'm going to have a big chunk of white down here at the bottom. I'll be able to cut that off, and I'll be able to cut off anything that sticks off over here on the side. I could do it this direction instead, and I could use this sky that I have here. This one, for whatever reason, I had cut a wave across the bottom of it, kind of, which is fine. I can take this and I'll still have to trim away the extra white paper. But the water will go on top of the sky because the sky is the furthest away. That's our background area. So I'm gonna do that. Actually, maybe I will just I'll just work with this one because it is dry. I have my glue here on a little plate, and I'm gonna be using a little plastic needle to put it on because my glue bottle is almost empty. And since my glue bottle is almost empty and I wanna be able to use what I have and not waste it, I've put some glue out on this little plate or this little piece of glass, and I'm going to use a little needle to get it onto the back. So when I do this one, I'm just going to do little dots of glue all around, and you could use your glue bottle if you want to. So if yours is flat across the bottom, just leave it flat. It doesn't need to have this shape across the bottom. I did not need to do that. I'm not sure why I did on the last one. But go ahead and glue that, put the glue all the way around, little dots all the way around, turn it over and glue that down nice and smooth right up to the corners. And somehow I still have a little bit of extra paper here, so I will be trimming that down once I'm all done. Okay, so now I have that on here. And then I'm going to put my water on, and I want, again, even this way, it would have that weird white, and I don't really want that. So I'm going to put it so that it just overlaps like this. I'm not putting any glue in at the top. I'm only going to put it down along the very bottom edge for now. So just little dots kind of on, you know, a couple here at the corner, all across the bottom. And a couple here on this corner, just a little bit, not a lot. Turning that and not going all the way up on the sides. And then I'm going to turn that over and lay it down so that it overlaps my sky just by a little bit. Now, if you've painted your sky for the background, that's not going to matter. Okay, so I'm going to set that off to the side. Now I need to think about my frog. So that frog is kind of a funny set of shapes. And Leo Leone, when he did his frog, sometimes they're jumping, sometimes they're squatting, sometimes you see both little front arms, sometimes you just see one little front arm. It just kind of depends on what those little frogs are doing. This one is apparently swimming in the water. They're fighting. So when we're thinking about it, this one's squatting, and I think that was kind of the one that I had been thinking about in my picture. But when we're thinking about it, when we're drawing, we're going to be drawing on the back side of our green paper. So if I want it to face that way when I draw it, it has to face that way, which is a little bit tricky. And I may make some mistakes, you may make some mistakes, and that's okay. We're going to get through it. But the main thing to think about is this shape here, because this shape is always happening for that frog's body. So when I made this little frog here, I started with that kind of egg shape, okay? So I'm gonna draw the egg shape, and I can draw it anywhere. This whole page has been painted. If I think about it and I really like this darker green, or I like this little bit of blue, or I like this little bit of yellow and lightness in it, I can choose to do that. So that is what I'm gonna do. For me, I like the darker green. I'm gonna draw kind of a little egg shape. This one's a little bit bigger than that one, I think. That's okay. There we go. That's the egg shape that I like, right? So it's kind of rounded at the back, comes to almost a little point at the front, okay? So you're gonna draw that, and then you're gonna think about these legs. And these legs are definitely a trickier shape because they're not anything specific. So there's this kind of almost egg shape, and then it comes to a point and bends back and bends back. So when I do that, I want to do both of them going the same direction. So if this is going to be the front end of my frog, this is the narrow point, the face end, I'm going to do my legs to go in that direction too. So I'm going to draw one, and it's going to be kind of a little curve, comes down, and you could draw, maybe this will help, you could draw it so that each part of it, so here's that little thigh part, right? So that's kind of a rounded long triangle kind of shape. Then on that, you're gonna, from that front of it, you're gonna come back down, and you're gonna draw kind of a long skinny oval kind of shape, right? And then from that, you're gonna draw a short little oval shape, and that's going to be the foot. And I'm only going to draw one to begin with because I'm going to cut these out, and then I'm going to trace around this one for my second one, and that will help me make sure that I have both of them about the same size. So when I cut, I'm going to cut this away from the rest of my paper so that I don't cut up too much of my excess paper. Okay, so I've got one piece. I'm going to go ahead and cut out my oval. You don't have to erase anything because this is going on the back. If you decide that it's not quite the right shape when you turn it over and look at it from the front, you can always kind of draw and trim away, or just trim away. You don't have to draw. Okay, so here's that shape. Then for my leg, I'm going to cut, always turning that paper into the mouth of the scissors. Not turning my scissors to do all of these crazy, weird little angles, right? It's a lot easier to turn the paper than it is to turn my cutting hand. So I'm turning, 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 turning. And then turning back again. Turning, 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 turning. Okay. Now, that's a pretty good little leg shape. If I wanted to trim some of that away, if that's a little bit too thick in the front, I can always come along and trim like that, back to the foot a little bit, right? Just to that little foot line, and then cut right along that little foot line that I had drawn earlier. Okay, so that's that. That's a pretty good little frog leg, I think. So now I'm gonna trace this. I'm gonna put it down so that I see those pencil lines. It's going in the same direction. And I'm gonna trace around what I drew before, and that's going to help me have both of them be about the same size. They're not going to look exactly the same. I may end up doing a slightly different cut, but it's going to have them both be in the same ballpark of size. All right, so I've traced around that leg. Okay. And now I'm going to go through, again, I'm going to cut it away from the paper first because it's got all those funny little angles. It's awkward if I have a big, huge piece of paper that I'm trying to turn. So I've cut it away from the paper and then turning it into the mouth of my scissors. Okay, so now I have my second little leg. So one of them will get glued on behind, one of them will get glued on in front. You can choose what angle they're at for your frog, and then glue those on. And you can kind of adjust it a little bit. I'm not going to glue them on yet because I need to think about the other parts. So if I want one or two little arms to show, right? I have my frog squatting. If you wanted to do a long skinny leg, then you would just do, let me see if I can draw that out. If I wanted to do a long skinny leg, standing leg, I guess I should say, I would draw it, right? So there's that kind of the thigh part. Comes to kind of a knee. Not really a knee, but kind of a skinnier part of the leg. And that little funny foot. Okay, so that would be if I were doing a standing leg. And again, I would cut it out and then I would trace it and do a second one pretty much like it. So, so there's that, if I were to do that. For my arms, I can use some of my scrap paper here. So this piece over here is probably pretty good. When I look at his arms, it's basically a long oval that has been cut off at the end and some little fingers have been put into it. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do kind of a long skinny oval. And I'm just gonna flatten it off at the end. And then I'll do another kind of long skinny oval. And that way if I want two arms, I've got them. If I don't want two arms, I don't have to use one of them. Cut those out. And then if you want to put those little fingertips in, I'll show you how to do that. You don't have to. It's a little bit awkward to try to cut those little tiny pieces out. So I've got that one. And then got this one. Actually, I think that might be a little bit short, so I'm going to cut it a little bit longer. That's fine. Nobody's going to see that pencil line. Okay, so then I can do those little arms as if they're reaching forward if he's going to grab a butterfly, or she's going to grab a butterfly or a worm or something that might be in the picture, or trying to climb up the rocks, something like that. And then finally, in the green for the frog, I want these little bumps for the eyes, right? So those are pretty easy. That's just a little arc. And I'm gonna start out pretty big so that I can trim it away if it's too big later. But it's better to start out big. And then I'll do another one in this little scrap. Over here. And I like not doing it on the body of the frog because then it makes it so that it's easier for me to adjust them. If I cut them out on the body, it's harder for me to adjust it later if I need to. So I've got these two little pieces, and then we will use some white and we'll do some little black eyes on it. Okay, so I'm gonna set that over here. Actually, I'll glue that up. So I need to think about what my frog is doing. So I've got all my little pieces here. I've got my glue here. So for my frog, for the back leg, I'm gonna put a little bit of glue back here on this upper part of the thigh. I'm not gonna put a lot of glue on it, just a little bit. And I'm gonna think about how that's gonna sit, what he's doing. Okay, so I've got one leg, and then I'm gonna do the second leg. I think that one's gonna go that way. I could make them overlap a little bit like that if I wanted to. I could have this one, I could even have that one kind of in front, but I think I like it more like that. So then on this one, I will do a little bit of glue on the back edge of that thigh and put that there like that. Okay, so that's that. Then if I want to do those little fingertips in my arm, and you don't have to do this, this is a little bit tricky, but basically you're just gonna cut a little tiny V. It's really hard with the big scissors, but little tiny V's. Like that. And that kind of gives you that little fingertip shape, okay? So if you want to have both arms, or if you want to just have one arm, maybe the other one's back behind, it's up to you. But again, one of them you're going to glue from behind the body of the frog, and one of them you'll glue from in front of the body of the frog. Cut. Cut. Okay, so I've got two little arms now. I'll put a little glue on here, and that's going to go back behind. I have to decide where, right? And then I'll put a little bit of glue here. Okay. That's going to go there. If I want to cut that open mouth, like those have an open mouth, I could do that. If I want to just draw a line later of a closed mouth, I could draw a little line later of a closed mouth. I kind of like that little open mouth, so I am going to cut a little V into the front here, like that. It's not quite far enough, so I'll cut a little bit further. Connect that up. There we go. Now he's got a little mouth. And then for the eyes, we're going to take a little bit of some white paper, or you could just use the back side of one of your painted pieces, right? And I'm going to cut a slightly smaller version of those little arcs. And I'm going to color it in with some black. Not completely color it in, but color in little pupils on it. So there's one bit. Here's another bit. Okay. And then I'm going to take a black marker or pen, whatever I have. And I'm going to color in just a little pupil, kind of up and down like that. And if it doesn't quite fit later, I'll be able to trim it away. Okay, so I color that in like that. Then those get glued onto my little eye bumps, whatever those are called. I don't know that there's really there, but there's that one. Okay, so that's my bigger one, so I'm going to use this bigger one on it. Put some glue on the back side. Glue that down like that. Then I'm going to take this one. A little glue on the back side. Glue that down. Okay, And if it sticks off on one side or the other, or if the arc isn't quite right or whatever, you can always trim it down before you glue it onto your frog. Okay, so I've got one. I'm gonna probably, I need to figure out where I want to place them, but I think it's probably gonna go like that, right? Maybe I want to do it the other way. Before you glue it down, you know, kind of play with it a little bit. See what you think. I think the smaller one should go in the back. So I'm going to put a little glue across the bottom of the front of that. Just a tiny bit. Glue that on. Okay. Hopefully that works. And then tiny bit across the bottom of this one, but on the back side. And I had too much on there, so I scraped a lot of it off. Glue that one on. So now we have our little frog. Okay? Frog is done. That's the hardest part of this whole project, is getting that frog made. Once you have the frog made, then you can, everything else is pretty easy. So here's my brown paper that I just painted with you guys. So I'm gonna cut out some rocks, and they don't have to be drawn. You can if you want to, but basically I'm just gonna kind of cut sort of a lumpy shape like that, right? And actually that kind of gives me a second lumpy shape. Maybe it gets curved so that it's not quite so straight there on the edge, right? Now that I have my rocks, I can think about where they're gonna go, right? I can have one here, I can have one here. Since I haven't done anything, and since my paper is going to get trimmed down here, I don't want to put it off over here unless I want to trim some of it away. I could have one up like that. So it's kind of a bigger island in the background. Maybe, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and trim the edge of this off so that you can more easily see what that's going to be like. Now, that being the case, I'm probably going to have to, I may have to put a little glue down there later, but we'll see. Okay, so then I can put this in. That gives me that rock, right? This one could go like that. It's kind of up to you as to how you want your little islands to be in your pond. It kind of looks like an eyeball there. This one could go over here. This one could go up in here. So kind of play around with your composition. Composition is how things go together and what they look like. And I think I like that one. Yeah, I think I like it so that they go in the opposite directions. So then my rock gets glued down. Dot, dot, dot. Just little dots. Slide that down in. Okay. This one gets glued in. And again, I'm not, I don't want to make it so that I can't stick anything in there yet. So on this side, I'm just going to do the very bottom corners, very bottom edge, because I want, if I want my frog to be able to kind of climb up this rock, if I wanted it to, I might want to be able to stick something in behind it, right? So I don't know if I'm going to want to do that, but I don't want to take away my options of that kind of work yet. Maybe he's falling. Anyway, so you're going to figure out your rocks, get those kind of in place, and you've got your frog. From the rest of your green, you can cut some the long skinny plant life if you want to. So I'm just going to kind of cut a curve. I'm going to cut another little curve. And that's going to give me a leaf shape. And then I'm going to cut a couple more. And they don't all have to curve the same way. They can all be a little bit different. Okay. So I've got a few leaves cut. Those can start down here at the bottom, like that. Right. You can have one that I tuck in behind up here. You can have them on both rocks. So those are all just kind of fun little ways to play around with composition. And like I said, composition is how things go together. You're composing a piece of artwork. They talk about composing music. Well, artwork is kind of the same way. It's how the notes go together is a composition in music. How your pieces go together, your subject matter and the background, that is your composition in this kind of artwork. So if I have my frog and my leaves, once I get it all figured out, I'm going to glue all of that down. If I were to choose to put a little butterfly out here, I could do that. If I wanted to do a lightning streak, there was a lightning streak in a couple of those pictures that we had, I can use the back side of my white paper, my painted paper, and I can do a zigzag that kind of looks like a lightning streak, right? So I didn't draw that. You could if you wanted to. And then I can figure out where that might go if I want a lightning streak on my picture. All of those things are things that you need to think about and figure out where your frog is going to go, where your rocks go, where your plant life goes, and just glue it down a little bit at a time. Don't make it so that you can't stick something behind your water if you want to. If you want your frog to kind of be swimming, you can do that. Okay? If you want your plant life to stick down behind your rocks, don't glue down the tops of your rocks. Just kind of, and then you can always trim off if it goes off the edge of the page, or stick it down a little bit further. And there you have your little picture. And I would love to see these. I am going to trim off the bottom of my page here. I had told you guys, if you have extra paper sticking off, to just trim it away. So I'm going to do that. And then I have my little collage of my frog in his pond. All right, I hope you guys had a good time. If you take pictures, maybe your teachers can post them for me, or your parents can post them for me, because I love to see what you guys have done. I hope you had fun, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye.